I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
For decades, the British monarchy has survived storms of scandal. But some betrayals strike closer to the crown than anyone expects.
Please let us not become too politically correct.
When shocking claims emerged that Camilla had treated Queen Elizabeth's property as her own, palace insiders say the fallout was immediate and severe.
She's the wife of, she's going to be the wife of a king, therefore she is a queen. End of conversation.
Behind closed doors, tensions exploded, trust fractured, and King Charles allegedly made a decision that stunned even senior royals. Was this the breaking point that ended their relationship, or merely the surface of a far deeper royal rupture within the palace walls? The Royal Reckoning, under crystal lights. Buckingham Palace was unusually quiet that evening. In the private study, warm lamps cast a soft golden glow over shelves of old books and polished wood. It should have been a place of calm, but instead it became the setting where everything Charles believed began to fall apart. Charles sat behind his desk, his glasses resting low on his nose as he read routine papers. His thoughts were elsewhere, heavy with the endless weight of duty. Suddenly, the door flew open. Princess Anne stormed in, her face tight with urgency and pain. Without a word, she marched to the desk and dropped a thick pile of documents in front of him. The sound echoed louder than it should have. "Please, just read them," she said, her voice shaking. Not with fear, but with fierce loyalty to her brother. "You deserve to know." Confused, Charles looked up at her, then down at the papers. As he turned the pages, his hands began to tremble. There were printed emails showing secret discussions about land deals and luxury resorts. Bank records followed, tracing large sums of money through offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Names repeated themselves. Companies tied not to the crown, but to members of Camilla's family. The picture grew darker with every page. At first, Charles refused to believe it. Surely there was a mistake. Surely this could not be real. But disbelief quickly gave way to shock, and shock to anger. His face drained of color. His chest tightened as if the room itself were closing in. "Camilla," he whispered, his voice breaking. "How could this be?" He slammed his hand on the desk, the force rattling everything on it. Tears welled in his eyes and spilled freely down his cheeks. This was the woman he had defended for decades, the woman he had loved through public outrage, private pain, and endless scandal. She had stood beside him as he finally became king. And now, according to the evidence before him, she had betrayed not just him, but the memory and integrity of the crown itself. That night, he summoned her to Clarence's house. The meeting was short and tense. Charles placed the documents between them like a blade. "Tell me the truth," he demanded. "All of it." Camilla shook her head, her eyes wide and desperate. She denied everything, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. She reached for his hand, pleading with him to trust her. But the proof was undeniable. One by one, Charles pointed to the facts. Each denial weakened, each excuse collapsed, until her words meant nothing at all. There could be no delay. Charles ordered an emergency tribunal to be held deep within the palace. Beneath grand chandeliers that sparkled like cold, watchful stars, the royal family gathered. Anne stood firm. Prince William sat tall and silent, his expression hard with resolve. Camilla entered last, pale and trembling, as though the life had already been drained from her. Charles rose to speak. His voice, though steady, carried the weight of heartbreak and fury. "What was hidden has been revealed," he said. "This is betrayal of family, of trust, and of the crown." Camilla finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed. She spoke of fear, of wanting security for her family, of choices she claimed were made out of love, not greed. "Please," she sobbed, "forgive me." Anne answered first, her words sharp and final. "Some actions cannot be undone." William followed, his tone calm but firm. "The honor of our grandmother and this institution cannot be compromised." Charles listened in silence. Then his anger surged. He struck the table once more, the sound echoing through the chamber. "You were given chances," he said. "You were offered mercy. And still, you lied." His judgment was swift. Camilla would be stripped of all royal duties and influence. She would keep her title, but nothing more. She would live in isolation at Highgrove, far from the heart of royal life. Her cries filled the room as she was led away. In that moment, a love story that had spanned decades, secret meetings, public battles, and even a coronation, came to a bitter end. What remained was not romance, but the cold reality of trust broken and a crown forever changed. What is the discovery that shattered the king? Why did it hit their relationship with a great blow? Let's find out. The shocking discovery in the Golden Study. In the quiet center of Buckingham Palace, where history seemed to breathe through stone walls and polished floors, King Charles III sat alone at his old walnut desk. The summer of 2025 had wrapped London in gentle warmth, and sunlight streamed through tall windows, resting softly on shelves lined with books, letters, and memories. The desk before him was no ordinary piece of furniture. It had stood through generations of kings and queens, absorbing whispered worries, bold decisions, and silent regrets. To Charles, it felt almost alive. At 76, the king lived by routine. He rose with the first light of day, long before the palace fully stirred. Each morning followed the same careful pattern: a quiet walk, a moment of reflection, then hours spent reviewing state papers. Beside him always sat a cup of Earl Grey tea, its familiar scent steady and comforting, like an old friend who never failed him. Outside, London hummed with life, cars moving like distant waves, birds calling from hidden corners, but within the room, peace held firm. That peace broke when his private secretary entered. The man's black suit was crisp, his face unreadable. Without ceremony, he placed a thick file on the desk and announced it had come from Clarence House, Camilla's residence. Charles barely looked up as he reached for it. Files arrived daily, most of them dull and predictable. He expected notes about estate maintenance, charity programs, or environmental causes close to his heart. With a relaxed motion, he opened the folder, unaware that his morning calm was about to unravel. As he read the first few pages, something felt wrong. This was no routine report. The words were sharp, purposeful, and unsettling. His eyes moved faster, his hand tightening on the paper. Page after page revealed plans that made his chest grow heavy. There it was in black and white, proposals to reassign royal jewels that carried the weight of centuries. The St. Edward's crown, sacred and symbolic, the crown his mother had worn at her coronation, was listed as part of a redistribution plan. The Delhi Durbar pearl necklace, rich with imperial history and personal meaning, was marked for relocation. These were not just ornaments, they were living symbols of continuity. Then came the estates, the Scottish lands, quiet and mist-covered, where Queen Elizabeth II had found peace away from the world's noise, were described as assets for transfer. Some were suggested for sale, others for long-term lease. Charles felt a sharp ache as he read. Those places held memories of laughter, counsel, and quiet strength. The list went on. Priceless paintings by Reynolds, fragile porcelain crafted in the 18th century, objects that had survived wars, crises, and change, now reduced to entries in a plan. The language tried to soften the blow. Words like modernization, progress, and Philanthropy appeared again and again. Funds, the document claimed, would support children in need, climate projects, and public causes. Noble goals, on the surface. Yet something about it felt deeply wrong. Then Charles reached the final page. At the bottom, clear and unquestionable, were the words, "Approved. Camilla, Queen Consort." No mention of consultation, no royal approval from him, no discussion. His breath caught. The room felt suddenly smaller. Memories rose uninvited. His mother's steady gaze, her calm voice at Windsor, her quiet command, "Protect our soul, Charles." She had never raised her voice, yet her words had always carried weight. He leaned back, slowly. The sunlight now harsh, rather than warm. Doubt crept in, unwelcome and heavy. Had the woman he stood beside through storms and scandal gone too far? Had loyalty been mistaken for permission? The palace remained silent, but inside Charles, a storm began to form. The calm of the morning had vanished, replaced by questions with no easy answers. And for the first time in a long while, the king felt unsure of the ground beneath his crown. How did Camilla carry out the act without necessarily arousing suspicion? Who was her accomplice? What was the context of the transaction? Let's delve into the details of the secret deal, the whispered plot, and sisterly secrets. Across the busy streets of London, where traffic hummed and people rushed past without looking up, Clarence House stood calm and watchful. Its grey stone walls had seen decades of history, while its gardens bloomed quietly behind tall gates, hidden from curious eyes. For Camilla, it felt like a safe shelter, a place to breathe after days filled with tense smiles, careful words, and unspoken strain inside the palace. She arrived there that evening carrying more than her handbag. Fatigue sat heavily on her face, but beneath it was a steady, almost stubborn resolve. The noise of court life, the silent judgments, the weight of old stories that refused to fade. All of it had pushed her to this moment. She sent word for her sister, Annabel Elliot, asking her to come at once. Annabel arrived not long after. In her mid-70s, she moved with quiet confidence, her silver hair neatly styled, her eyes sharp with experience. She was known for her talent, an interior designer whose touch had turned simple royal cottages into warm, elegant retreats. Where others saw old walls, Annabel saw possibility. They met in a small drawing room, tucked away from the rest of the house. The room felt personal, almost secret. A teapot steamed gently on the table, filling the air with the comforting scent of Earl Grey. The fireplace crackled softly, its flames fading but still warm. Long ago, this very room had held laughter and whispered conversations between Camilla and Charles, moments stolen from a world that did not yet accept them. Camilla broke the silence. "Annabel," she said quietly, leaning closer, "it's time we talk about the real plan." Her voice was soft, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. To anyone listening from outside, what followed would have sounded reasonable, even noble. She spoke of reorganization, of bringing change, of using royal treasures for the public good. She mentioned causes Charles cared deeply about: protecting nature, restoring lands, supporting modern charities that look toward the future rather than the past. But here, in the safety of closed doors, another story slowly came into view. Camilla spoke of jewels that sparkled only on rare occasions, locked away for most of their lives. She spoke of vast lands, rolling hills, old estates, quiet stretches of countryside that had belonged to the crown for generations. She mentioned fine porcelain, priceless ornaments, and heirlooms carefully preserved, yet rarely touched. What if, she wondered aloud, these things were turned into something more useful? One by one, she laid out the idea. Sell the jewels, auction parts of the land, let go of objects gathering dust. The money, she suggested, would not simply disappear. It would be gathered, protected, and redirected, quietly, into a future built for her own family. A hidden fortune. A private empire. Annabel listened closely, her expression slowly changing. By the time Camilla finished, her eyes shone with excitement. She imagined luxury estates rising from green fields in Wiltshire, elegant resorts tucked into Scotland's wild landscapes, places of beauty, comfort, and power, far from palace rules and royal expectations. "I can see it already," Annabel said, her voice alive with energy. "Classic British style, but fresh. Warm, bold, something that lasts." Camilla smiled faintly. She added that Tom, her son, could shape the dining experiences. With his sharp taste and public influence, he would draw the world's elite to their tables. Laura, her daughter, with her love for art, could curate galleries filled with rare pieces and quiet grandeur. Every detail would speak of taste, wealth, and independence. "Our own legacy," Camilla said, gripping her sister's hand. "No more living in someone else's shadow. No more chains." For a moment, fear and thrill mixed in her chest. Years of whispers, harsh headlines, and the label of the other woman had hardened her. This plan, risky as it was, felt like freedom. When Annabel finally left, her mind buzzing with dreams of design and dominance, the house fell silent again. But the silence did not mean privacy. In the hallway outside the drawing room stood Mary, a long-serving maid. Her cleaning cloth hung forgotten in her hand. She had heard everything. Her heart pounded as she reached for her phone, fingers trembling. With one quiet call, she set something into motion, something that could shake walls far stronger than stone. How did the news get to the royal family? How did Princess Anne, the whistleblower, react when she discovered the betrayal? Let's dive into the details of the tracking and chase. The fierce guardian's relentless pursuit. At Windsor Castle, where centuries of history whispered through cold stone corridors, Princess Anne moved with purpose. The echoes of queens and kings lingered in the air, but for Anne, Elizabeth's steadfast daughter, razor-sharp in mind and loyal to the bone, those echoes were not just history, they were a responsibility. She had been the keeper of her mother's memory, a guardian of legacy, and nothing short of complete devotion would satisfy her conscience. It was in this quiet, hallowed setting that her phone vibrated, shattering the serene silence. On the line, trembling and almost whispering, was Mary, a long-trusted aide whose hands shook as she clutched her own secret. "It's betrayal, Your Highness," she breathed, voice tight with fear. She recounted, in hushed tones, resorts and estates bought and funded with money siphoned from the royal legacies, treasures passed down for centuries, now serving private indulgences. Anne's face flushed a stormy crimson. Her jaw tightened. Her fingers curled around the phone as if it were a dagger. The thought that someone dared to exploit her mother's memory sent a surge of fury coursing through her veins. This was no ordinary offense. This was war on sacred ground, an attack on history itself. Without pause, Anne's resolve transformed into action. She stormed into her black Range Rover, slammed the door, and roared away, tires screaming against the winding driveways of Windsor. The air seemed to crackle with tension, the wind carrying her anger as she sped toward Clarence House, the seat of deception, or so she suspected. Bursting into Camilla's office without warning, Anne's presence alone sent servants scattering like autumn leaves in a violent gale. "I know your game!" Anne's voice thundered, sharp and unstoppable, echoing off polished walls like rolling thunder. "You're selling Mother's jewels, her lands, to fund your own playgrounds, Annabel's extravagant designs, Tom's feasts, Laura's indulgences. Stop this now, or I will bring it all to Charles." Camilla froze, color draining from her face, but a spark of defiance flickered in her eyes. "You misunderstand, Anne. I am only modernizing, not scheming. You've always been jealous." "Always!" she shot back, the tension in the room crackling like live wires. Words clashed like swords in the storm of their confrontation, fury meeting fury. Anne left, storming back to her car, but her mission was far from over. At Windsor, she summoned Edward, her closest and most trusted shadow operative. Edward, with his networks of discreet whispers, maids, lawyers, insiders from the duchy, was her eyes and ears in every corner of the royal maze. "Find it all," she instructed, her voice cold yet commanding. "No stone unturned, every hidden ledger, every offshore trail." Days blended into nights, each one a blur of encrypted emails, secret accounts, and covert investigations. Edward moved quietly, collecting proof, tracing money through a labyrinth of shell companies and hidden transfers. When he finally returned, dossier in hand, Anne took it from him with trembling hands. The evidence was irrefutable. A fund disguised as green investments, a trail leading directly from the sale of her mother's jewels and lands to resorts designed for private gain. A subtle, bitter revenge, a Parker Bowles scheme born of past slights against the Windsor family. Anne's tears fell, but not from grief. They were tears of righteous fire, of indignation for the sanctity violated, for the legacy desecrated. "Mother would be furious," she whispered, clutching the crumpled documents as though they were a sword forged from truth. Outside, the sunset blazed a furious red across the sky, a perfect mirror to her wrath and determination. With a final resolute breath, Anne leapt into her car, dossier clutched like a weapon. Buckingham awaited, and she was ready. Ready to shatter illusions, expose betrayal, and defend the honor of a mother whose memory could not, and would not, be stolen. What eventually became of Camilla after everything? Will she be able to save her face? Let's dig into the details of Camilla's shattered legacy. The haunting echoes of a fractured legacy. Highgrove House, once a vibrant garden of shared dreams and tender moments, had become Camilla's gilded cage. What was meant to be a sanctuary bloomed with irony instead. Every rose, every tulip, every carefully planted shrub bore the invisible imprint of Charles' affection, a testament to the love that had once flourished between them. Yet, Camilla walked its winding paths alone, her steps echoing in corridors filled with memories that were no longer hers to share. Her title, grand on paper, felt hollow. The privileges she once imagined as hers were quietly stripped away by circumstance and public scrutiny. The media descended like a storm, hungry for scandal and eager to dissect her life. Headlines screamed, "Queen Consort's scheme shattered," as whispers followed her from palace to palace. Society labeled her the eternal betrayer, a shadow cast over the monarchy's proud legacy. Each passing day added weight to her conscience and health. Regret became a constant companion, pressing down as if to remind her of every misstep. Old photographs were cruel mirrors, images of laughter-filled hunts, cozy nights by the fire, and shared smiles now mocked her, frozen in time. Camilla tried to soothe herself with excuses, murmuring in quiet corners, "They never welcome me fully." Yet even her own words could not drown the sting of exclusion. Outside the palace walls, her family's empire quietly crumbled. Annabelle's long-awaited commissions disappeared, leaving her artistic dreams unfulfilled. Tom's sharp critiques turned bitter, echoing with disappointment. Laura, who had once treasured her possessions, saw them sold, pieces of memory and legacy scattered to the winds. The walls of Highgrove grew thicker with each passing day, not in comfort, but in solitude. In name, she was a queen. In reality, she was an outcast, a solitary figure trapped in splendor and shame alike. Meanwhile, Charles, whose heart bore scars invisible to the public eye, found an unexpected rebirth in duty. Nights once sleepless with turmoil gradually transformed into hours of purpose and resolve. He became a guardian not only of his own heart, but of the legacy entrusted to him. Elizabeth's untouched heritage, steeped in history and duty, became his anchor. He expanded charities devoted to the environment, carrying forward initiatives that left lasting footprints on a world that had long watched him with wary admiration. In moments of quiet reflection, he visited Elizabeth's grave in Windsor, drawing solace from the past while charting a future of meaningful action. Through it all, unshakable bonds formed. Anne, vigilant and steadfast, remained a constant anchor, her loyalty a quiet force that held the family together through storms. William, poised and mindful of tradition, embraced his role as heir with a dedication that fused respect for history with a vision for continuity. The monarchy, tested in fire and shadow, endured because of their shared commitment. Each act, small or monumental, was a stitch in the tapestry of resilience that bound the family and the institution together. The monarchy emerged tempered, not broken, as duty overcame ambition. Elizabeth's enduring spirit safeguarded an unbreakable legacy, immune to greed and desire. Though tested, the institution remained a beacon of continuity. Highgrove symbolized paradox and renewal, proving true greatness lies in responsibility, resilience, and loyalty, beyond personal passion alone today. Can Camilla reclaim her lost glory and privilege? Is this the first time she would be going through such? Let's find out what it was like to have won the hearts of many who hated her before her marriage with Charles, from scandal to crown. For more than 18 years, King Charles and Queen Camilla have been married, but their journey together did not begin smoothly. Their relationship was shaped by controversy, public anger, and long periods of silence. From the very start, it was clear that love alone would not be enough to protect them from the weight of public opinion. When Camilla's relationship with Charles became public knowledge, many people blamed her for the collapse of his marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales. The reaction was fierce and unforgiving. Newspapers, commentators, and members of the public painted her as the villain in a painful royal story. Harsh words followed her everywhere, and for a long time sympathy was in very short supply. To many, she was not seen as a person with feelings, but as a symbol of betrayal. Yet time has a way of changing perspectives. As the years passed, the intense anger slowly faded. The public mood began to soften, and people started to look at Camilla with less hostility and more understanding. She did not help this shift by giving emotional interviews or defending herself in public. Instead, she chose silence. She never openly answered her critics or tried to explain her side of the story to the world. This made many wonder, how did she cope with all the negativity behind closed doors? According to Ingrid Seward, editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, Camilla survived those difficult years by leaning on two powerful supports: friendship and humor. She kept close to a strong group of female friends she had known since her younger days. These women stayed by her side through the storms, offering laughter, comfort, and a sense of normal life. Ingrid believes Camilla's sense of humor was just as important. Life, she says, is often overwhelming, and laughter becomes a form of survival. And laughter, more often than not, is best shared with trusted friends. Camilla also found comfort in solitude and creativity. During the worst moments, she would withdraw from public view and spend time alone, painting in a studio. It was a quiet escape from the noise of criticism. At that time, Charles, still Prince of Wales, was deeply caring and attentive. He made sure she was looked after, sending food from his chef and arranging transport whenever she needed to go out. While royal life can feel distant and protected, this period helped Charles understand what it meant to be without public approval, something the royal family was not used to experiencing. When Charles and Camilla married in 2005, she stepped firmly into her role and committed herself fully to royal duties. She did not demand acceptance. She worked for it. Over time, her dedication became clear. Her charitable work focused on issues close to everyday life: health and well-being, literacy, the arts, animal welfare, and supporting survivors of rape, sexual assault, and domestic abuse. Through steady service, she reshaped how people saw her, not through words, but through actions. A major turning point came in February 2022 when Queen Elizabeth II publicly expressed her wish that Camilla should be known as Queen Consort when Charles became king. It was a powerful moment of approval from a monarch deeply respected by the nation. The Queen spoke warmly, asking the public to give Charles and Camilla the same support she had received throughout her reign. After the coronation on the 6th of May, Camilla officially became Her Majesty the Queen. The title marked not just a change in status, but the end of a long and difficult journey. From one of the most criticized women in Britain to a recognized and respected queen, Camilla's story is one of patience, resilience, and quiet strength. She did not rush public forgiveness. She earned it, one steady step at a time. So what do you think about Camilla's crimes? Is it worth the cost of her marriage? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.